And you're very welcome. Today we're coming to you from Carrick Mines in South County Dublin, scene of this archaeological dig and the scene of a row which you may well have heard about, because Dún Laoghaire Council has plans to put a motorway through what is the site of a medieval castle. In the process, according to conservationists, they will destroy a large part of our heritage. Now, as I say, you'll have heard about the row, so we don't want to wade into that again. But there are other aspects of this site which are absolutely fascinating. The archaeology itself, for instance, because over the past 2 years, at any given stage, you'd find 100 archaeologists working away here, and they've recovered thousands of artifacts, which when pieced together, well, they give us a picture of how life was lived in South County Dublin in the medieval period.
Today there's very little left of the once majestic Carrick Mines Castle. Foundation walls and other ground level features are all that remain to remind visitors of the past glories of the fortress.
Carrick Mines Castle was on the frontier between the land of war in the mountains and the land of peace in the plain below. It was a frontier station between, not quite in the land of war, not quite in the land of peace, and it was very strategically positioned for that reason. A second point is that the valley in which Carrick Mines Castle stands was the main routeway, or one of the main routeways from Dublin to the eastern side of the Wicklow Mountains. And both the colonists, the English, would go that way, and the Irish would come up that way. So there was two-way traffic, and the valley in which it stands was the strategic point between those. What's special about this site, it seems to me, is that it was not a castle in the conventional sense. It was more like a fort. It's an enormous site spread out in the bottom of the valley, with very extensive defences based on the stream that flows through the valley. It's not a conventional castle in the sense of a tower house or a castle like Trim, for example. It's much more special than that. As far as I'm concerned, it's unique, certainly in Eastern Ireland. I've seen nothing like it. It's the ditch that has a stone-lined wall round it. When people have seen the walls of Carrick Mines Castle in their newspapers, what they've been looking at is an underground feature, not an overground feature. That really is very special, and I've certainly seen nothing like it.
The castle was built around the late 12th century. The present-day site extends over 8 acres and has 2 large enclosures. The first is a stone-lined ditch, and the second, more rounded, is cut out of bedrock. The structure was repeatedly altered and parts of it rebuilt in the succeeding centuries. In its heyday, the castle was a thriving economic hub. It was destroyed in 1642, levelled to the ground by English troops. Many thousands of artefacts have been recovered in the excavations at the site. Amongst them, a stick pin used for hair or clothing. A medieval arrowhead. A weight for weighing money. And a 13th century coin. A medieval pewter spoon. A prehistoric flint arrowhead and blade. Fragments of pottery known as Dublinware, and an ornate ceramic tile.
2 years of excavation has produced a huge amount of information about the people of Carrick Mines, how they lived, how they died, and it's increased the knowledge of the medieval period. Well, we've had a huge amount of artefacts in this site, over 70,000 pieces of pottery alone. We've had a number of jewellery items such as brooches and stick pins, along with some coins from the 1700s. And that just gives us a good idea of their everyday life, how they ate, what they ate from, what they drank from, how they stored their food, and just gives us a good insight into 500 years of history.
Valerie Keeley, an archaeological consultant, is in charge of the company which is carrying out the excavations.
here we have a habitation area on the site, domestic in nature. We have the stone wall here, which shows the remains of a medieval house. We also have the stone-lined well, which you can see are quite a deep well already filled up with water. And in the general area here we have a lot of activity from the habitation on the site. And just over here, a few meters from the pit, we have another stone feature. This appears to be a storage pit, and as you can see it's quite well constructed with very large cut stones.
Well, this is a production area, if you like, for food and cereal. Now what we have here is a mill pond. Now above this would have been the mill, which has obviously not survived. And up along here we have the mill race, where the water would have rushed down into the mill pond. Now just up there we have 2 corn drying kilns where the grains were actually dried, and then they would have been brought to the mill and further production would have been carried out there. Focus for here was the recording of this. Once archaeology is destructive, what some people don't realise is once you take it away, it's gone forever. So it's very important to record as you go through the various archaeological layers. And that includes photography, planning, context sheets, a written record as well.
The future of Carrickmines Castle is uncertain. Once more on the frontier and under siege, it is caught between the building of our future and the preservation of our past.